I'm gonna start every video like that. Hello. It's been about a week since I made that last video and everyone seemed to enjoy it, so I thought, okay, here we go, let's do it again. I was gonna empty the dishwasher, but you know, why do that when there's time to make a video? And that's a joke, but it's also real life. I think, you know, life is continuing on. After sort of the snap to awareness last week, and I think we're all feeling the energetic shockwaves of sort of what's been happening in terms of obviously the U.S. election. And I think it caused a ripple effect where, I think there was a lot of apathy at play, unfortunately. But I think, fortunately, it's becoming clearer. I think people are realizing that, you know, it's time to wake up a little bit. And there's, on one hand, the idea of like, it's going to be fine. It's always going to be fine. And I think, you know, what we're realizing is when we don't engage or we don't interact, it's not fine. And it's really, really far from fine. And I think it's really important that although we are sort of going about our daily lives and we're having meetings and we're back to work and, you know, we're doing what we do, emptying the dishwasher, that we don't normalize this. This is not normal. It is not normal that a reality TV star, celebrity, pseudo business person has taken office, who has basically admitted that they don't pay taxes and that they were in touch with the Kremlin during the election. There's a lot of weird things going on, and I think it's good for us to be talking about them. I, for one, have noticed, at least here in Toronto and Canada, there's been a lot more increase in, I think, people just trying to really connect day to day and really try and understand a little bit more and listen. Because, you know, I think we're not ignorant to the fact that this stuff goes on here too. You know, there's been posters put up around town, attention white people, about trying to mobilize. And it's interesting for me because I don't tend to, I mean, people identify me as white, but I don't identify as white. I'm a pretty mixed bag when it comes to my background, and definitely a quarter of me is definitely not white. I'll let you figure out what it is. But for me, I think the interesting point of that is really looking at even the marginalization that's happening with assumptions about, you know, who's what. Which to me is just, it's crazy. And this idea of creating a register in the United States for Muslims, I hope that people see that as a call to action to stand in solidarity. And if there is a registry, everyone should register and make things really easy. And I think this is talking about solidarity. I said I was going to make something for women and speak specifically to women. And this is that time. Ladies, hello. It's me, Amy, your trusty sidekick and forever coach. I want to say that I think this is the time. I know a lot of women are feeling really, really upset and angry, myself included. I mean, I feel like abuser has taken the White House and the presidency. And obviously, from my own personal story with going through my own story of abuse, which is for another time. But with my own story, I find this absolutely jarring because, you know, I grew up in a situation. I said I wasn't going to get into the story, and now I'm getting into it. But I grew up in a situation where, you know, I was told that no one would believe me and no one would care and no one was going to do anything. And to watch a situation where so many people have come forward, and even this man himself, I mean, I hesitate to speak of him as a man, but genetically I think he is, if he is human at all. But I think the type of language that he's been using, the type of behavior he's been using, I think all women are familiar with. Unfortunately, we live in a society where this happens. I think men are starting to realize over the last few years, thankfully, real men are realizing that this is something that we deal with on a daily basis. I had a situation today where I was walking home from a bunch of meetings feeling like, you know, the powerful businesswoman that I am and really feeling like I'm, you know, solving things and changing something. And I walked by a group of construction workers and of course they took the opportunity to, you know, give me some comments. And I really think they think that that's something that we enjoy. And of course, I was doing something else, and I'm not going to engage with subhumans. But for me, the idea that someone like that, who is that construction worker on the street behaving that way, and I don't want to generalize for all construction workers, but these particular individuals working at Richmond and Peter, I think. So if you want to go visit them, that's where they were. Richmond and Peter in Toronto, great group of construction workers. But the idea that this is something that America has felt that it's okay, let's see what he can do. That is painful to me as a survivor. It's painful to me as a healer, and it's painful to me as a businesswoman. I have fought for my entire career. I mean, I work in a completely male-dominated industry where there is not parity until recently. Thank you, Naomi J, for creating parity for women. And, you know, I live in an environment where I have had to fight harder. I've been judged certainly more than I think a man in my position would be. I think people have said pretty, you know, offensive things about me because I'm a woman. You know, it's fine to think I'm an asshole, but to start to criticize, you know, who I am or what I do and how I do it, you know, to me, it's misogynistic. So the idea that suddenly this reality television star completely manipulated the American people, and the fact that there's such educational trauma due to all of the cuts of the Reagan administration and so many other things in the United States that have resulted in this giant gap between rich and poor, and this giant gap between educated and uneducated. And you literally, truly have people who legitimately believe that they are in the position they are in because someone else who is a different color or a different religion or a different gender or a different sexual identifier is taking their job. And to me, that's where we as women can actually, I mean, get angry. I think it's okay to get angry. I think it's okay to get fired up. But my recommendation is channel that into action, channel that into education, and let's actually see and do what I think it was Jeffrey Wright said. Let's create the most badass generation of women that this world has ever seen, because we have been persecuted since the witch trials. We have been persecuted for, you know, our magic and wonder and our ability to create human beings within our bodies. We need your help, men, obviously, to do that. But I think the idea that, you know, we've fought for so long in modern culture, because in most ancient civilizations, women had an equal or sometimes even higher role than men. If we look at ancient Egypt, the Mayans, the Aztecs, there was never this kind of misogyny that existed in those cultures. So where did it come from, and why is it still here? And I think when we look at this situation, it comes from fear. You know, I think any man, if we were to sit down and break down with a misogynist what the major issue is, it's a lack of equality. They truly believe that there is a lack of equality and that men are wired to do things somehow better than women. And they also believe, and I think it's probably rooted in a fear, that they will become unneeded. I mean, women have relied on men for, you know, food and shelter and all kinds of things for, you know, since the Paleolithic times. So I think there is some inherent, you know, energetic, cellular, ancestral DNA stuff where that's how men feel. I mean, people joke about men being cavemen or channeling their inner cavemen, and I think that's what that is. And I think, you know, it's fine to have gender roles. It's a totally different thing. And obviously that's up to the individual, but it's a totally different thing to have men like Donald Trump or any of his cohorts who actually believe that it is okay to go and actually touch a woman, to speak about a woman in the manner that they're speaking about, and to bully women. And I mean, this is someone who bullies everyone. But I think, in terms of us right now, in women in the world that we're living in. We cannot normalize that this has happened. We cannot normalize that this man is essentially an accused sexual abuser who's going to be going into the White House and representing the American people and representing, you know, the free world. And there's something wrong with that. It's okay for us to admit that there's something wrong with that. But the next thing is, and it's okay to be mad about it, and it's okay to scream and cry. And I know I've done that. I know a lot of women in my life have done that. That's okay. It makes total sense that you would do that. I think the next step to that is to mobilize in your own strength and power and remember your own role in your own world and community and life, and connect with other women and connect with men about opening up these conversations, and make sure that we're having conversations that are inclusive and understanding so that we can root this stuff out. Because it's obvious that a lot of this is under the surface in our society, and now with, you know, the rise of this man in the United States, we're seeing all these people rise up and realize that, hey, this is okay, great, let's actually step out in our full, you know, misogynistic glory. And I think that's where we as women, as facilitators, as leaders, as, you know, witches, magicians, all the things that we are inherently as women, that's where we need to stand up and say, okay, let's talk about this, and let's get a dialogue going, and let's root these people out and actually start to have conversations with them so that we can identify where the places are within our culture where these people are thriving. Because it's true. I mean, there's certain, you know, whether it's businesses or, you know, situations where this stuff is underlying more than in other places. And I think it's okay to start talking about that. I mean, advertising, production, the entertainment business, the media business, they are all male dominated. I think that's an obvious thing. Most businesses are. But as I sort of branch out myself as, you know, a business person and healer and all the other things that I do in the world, a human, and an activist, and I meet more people, I realize that not every business is as misogynistic as the one that I come from. And obviously I started my career in technology and broadcasting, and that was even more male skewed. So for me, thinking about sort of like, what do we do now as women, and how do we sort of lead the way in terms of what we're going to do moving forward? I think the most important thing that we can do is facilitate intelligent conversation. And yes, it's easy to yell. Yes, it's easy to, you know, send a nasty tweet. But I think the more valuable thing in that is looking at so many women voted for this person. Those women need to be educated. And if they are educated and they still did this, did they do it because it was their husband going, we're voting for this guy, right? Or was it because they actually chose it? Either way, these women need our help. They need us to communicate with them, and we need to be in loving kindness with these people. This is not about segmentation, because obviously that's got us to where we are. And the last segmentation we need is within women. I mean, this is crazy. I saw that the mayor of West Virginia tweeted something absolutely just disgusting about Michelle Obama, and she was fired, which is great. But the thought of another woman bullying a woman like that, I mean, I think most people know how I feel about that. I think, you know, I've spent a lot of my life learning how to underpin and mentor and support women. And I spend a lot of my time doing that. And to me, the idea of going out there and saying something like that publicly is just so unacceptable to me as a woman. And I think as women, this is our opportunity to hold, you know, ground and to say, calm down, because this is what we do, and actually look at the situation and say, how do we prevent this from ever happening again? How do we root out people who may have issues with education, or who may have, you know, have had experiences that were traumatic that created these beliefs? But I think we need to look at them. This misogyny is not a political belief. It should not be a political belief. It's hatred. It's a form of hatred, just like racism is. And all of these ideologies that are being sold are dangerous. And I think we need to, again, as women, stand firm as mothers, sisters, you know, all the things we are. And I think it's funny because men say that all the time, that they know they have a sister or they have a wife. But I think as women, we have to look at who we are in our own communities, in our own society, in our own business world, and have these conversations. And we can't normalize this stuff. And it's okay to talk about this stuff. I've been talking about it at work. I think everybody should. I think it's important. I think we all are realizing that there's something bigger than ourselves that is happening on the planet right now, and we all need to think really long and hard about what we want to be doing in the next 5 or 10 years, because we're going to end up in a situation in the next few hundred years where we're not going to have a planet if we don't do this next few years properly. And I think people are starting to realize that we have to move a lot faster than we've been moving. And I am hopeful about what is going on in America. I know that it is scary and people are worried, but I believe in the power of the American people. I am half American myself, and I believe that there is strength in their society. I believe that some of the most intelligent people on the planet live in the United States. They need to spread out that intelligence. They need to begin to heal, and this is healing that should have been done after the Civil War. They need to come together, and I think what we can do as Canadian women, to all the Canadian women, is help to point out to your American communities, family, friends, that they are the same, and that it wasn't about the candidates, it wasn't about the outcome of the election. This is about a broken system, and neither side would have been happy regardless of what happened. And that is because, again, as I said in my last video, these jobs are not jobs right now. These government jobs are not jobs that are attracting the right people. They're not attracting the smartest people that they can. And I think the American people need to do something about that. And I think it's okay to crack it open and say, hey, this is not what we wanted. And I really hope that the bravery that exists within American people, which, I mean, it is the home of the brave, I hope that they can stand up and change this, because I don't think this has to be the way it goes. So women, I ask that you stand in your power and stand in your light and really look at this as an opportunity to lead, and to ask the men in your life to do the same, and ask them to have tough conversations with their friends, and let's actually start to change this rather than continuing to fight about it. I love you all. I hope you all have a great day. This one was longer because it's for women.